Good morning, everyone. You can take the outline from your bulletin. This message is going to focus on rebooting your family. Now, I want to be clear, I did not say this is going to be on how to boot your family. This is about rebooting your family, and I'm using the term reboot to mean to make a fresh start. And it's not news to anyone in this room that the traditional family has been under assault from cultural forces for some time. But like every other relationship, you have to fight for it if you want it to be above average. So a long time ago, there was a fellow by the name of Nehemiah. And he was supervising the rebuilding of the wall around the city of Jerusalem. And in that process, the Jews were being threatened by their powerful neighbors who didn't want to see the wall happen. And even among the Jewish nation, there were people who didn't want to be involved. So Nehemiah made this statement to the people in chapter 4 and verse 4. After I looked things over, I stood up and said to the nobles, the officials, and the rest of the people, don't be afraid of them. Remember the Lord who is great and awesome, and watch this, and fight for your families. Fight for your families, your sons and your daughters, your wives and your homes. And there's two phrases that stick out to me. Number one is remember the Lord who is great and awesome. And number two, it's fight for your families. No matter what condition your family is in, it's never too late to reboot and make a fresh start. So we're going to take a look at some common traits that we find in families that are centered on God's original design. Now, I'm not going to attempt to define what a family is. I'm not even sure I could do that, because there are many different combinations that make up a family. In fact, I'm thinking of a family right now where there is no husband, no wife, no sons, no daughters, and no grandchildren. And it was a beautiful family. I'm thinking of Mary and her sister Martha and their brother Lazarus. Were they a family? Yeah. No husband, no wife, no sons, no daughters. So families come in a lot of different combinations. So number one, God's original design is families know how to enjoy life together. Maybe this isn't the kind of point that you were expecting in a message on reboot your family. Maybe you were thinking of something a little different than this. But enjoyment is a missing ingredient in many families because they're too tired, too worn out, too serious. The average family is all work and no play. Now, I was going to show some video clips, but then I decided, well, we won't do the video clips. I'll tell you what was in them. But these were some video clips that were done with children, and they were asked to comment about their families. You know how they asked the question, what do you think about your families? I think most of these children had a religious background, but there were some of the comments that were given. I like to go to the beach. I like to go to football games. I like to help my mom cook. Like to go to the state park. I like crafts. Like to go hunting. And as we would say in the South, bless this child's heart, well, I like to go to church. That was one of their responses. Remember that the family is not a military boot camp and the parents drill sergeants. Remember that the family is not a laboratory and the parents parents research scientists. Many Christian families know the Bible, and they emphasize working hard and not being lazy, and that's good, but the Bible says enjoyment is an equally important part of the family dynamic. I'm talking about having a good time. So in Ecclesiastes chapter 8, many of us are familiar with the grand conclusion of Ecclesiastes in chapter 12. And here's the conclusion: fear God and keep His commandments. That is actually the 8th of 8 conclusions that he draws in the book. There are 8 conclusions in Ecclesiastes. And here's one of them in chapter 8 and verse 15. So I commend the enjoyment of life, because nothing is better for a person under the sun than to eat and drink and enjoy life. Enjoying family activities is not a waste of time. Play and fun is essential to the development and the creativity of preschoolers. It's a very important aspect of their upbringing. In Ecclesiastes chapter 11 it says this: people ought to enjoy every day of their lives. How about that? Did you know that was in the Bible? No matter how long they live. But they should also remember this, and this is why I chose the New Century Version. You will be dead a long time. Now, I don't think it's any news to anyone in this room, but you're going to be dead a long time. When you're dead, you're going to be dead a long time. I guess until the Lord comes back and resurrects our bodies and all that. But that's not the part I'm focusing on. Look at the part that says, enjoy every day. Now, the reason why that is important is because you don't know what is in the future for yourself or your family. And I'm here to tell you, there basically is only one thing your children are going to remember about you. Just one thing, whether or not you were any fun. For the most part, children don't remember what you said to them. They remember how you made them feel. And this is true in every aspect of life. Your employer, a parent, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a teacher. So my favorite teacher in high school was Bill Hofstetter, and he was the coach for our cross-country team. I did cross-country. I know, I'm not lying. I did cross-country. I think we did 3-mile runs, which today would be called the 5K, right? And he was also my math teacher. So maybe that's why I made it through math. I don't know. But he said to the varsity team, and there were maybe 8 or 10 of us, and he said, in the morning, or whenever he said it, we're going to have breakfast at my house, at his house. He said his wife has prepared breakfast for the varsity cross-country squad. It's great! What a great coach! And so we showed up in the morning, and we're all excited, and we go, well, how are we going to get there? Where are the cars and transportation? And he said, well, she has breakfast prepared for you, but you have to jog to the house, which is 4 miles from here, so you're going to follow me in the car. And so we all jogged the 4, which we were all in good shape. I mean, when you're 17 and in good shape, you can run all day long. I mean, you can go at a jog forever. And so we went over there and ate, and I don't know, but that made us feel good. Made me feel good, made him feel good. I think we just all felt good about the whole situation. I can't remember anything that he ever said to me as a coach. I'm sure he yelled at me. I'm sure I had problems in the math class. All I remember is how he made me feel. And that's true with parenting. They're going to remember how you made them feel. So look at Ecclesiastes 9:9. Have you seen this one? Enjoy life with your wife. Kind of rhymes, doesn't it? Could even kind of make a song out of that. Hey, set that to some music. Enjoy life with your wife, whom you love. The greatest gift a dad could give his children, you want to know what it is? Loving their mother. You want to know the greatest gift? Loving their mother. It creates stability, security, and peace. And remember, parents are the first and greatest model of relationship to their children. So in Psalm 127:3, it says, children are a gift from God. Now I'm well aware that children are sometimes a gift you would like to exchange. You have like 30 days maybe to return. But just think about the word gift, and that's why I chose the Living Bible paraphrase just for the word gift. A gift is something that is given for the purpose of enjoyment. So, on these video clips I looked at, the children were asked what they like to do most with their parents, and I found it interesting that none of them asked for anything expensive. Now, I don't know the background that the children were coming from. I think that they were mostly children whose parents took them to church. But none of them asked for anything. This is what they said. This is what they enjoy doing. Playing board games. Old-fashioned board games. Like, what's an old-fashioned? Like Monopoly, Yahtzee, not the digital ones. They said they liked the old-fashioned board game. Having fun at a park. None of this sounds too expensive, does it? Going to the beach. And the common denominator in all of these was time with their parents. So what we're going to do on this next one is together we are going to spell the word love. Are you ready to spell the word love with me? Here we go. We're spelling love. T-I-M-E. That is how you spell love. Enjoy life together. Number 2 is God's original design is families encourage lifelong learning. Encourage lifelong learning. Develop interest so life doesn't become boring and children can learn. And listen, there's a lot of things to do between Baldwin County and Mobile counties. There's a lot of stuff you can do with your families, right? Everything from woods to beaches. There's all kinds of things around, things you can do. So it's a nice area to live. Things, simple things. I'm not talking about expensive things. I'm not talking about going on a carnival cruise. Just things that you can do around here. In Luke 2:52, this statement is made about Jesus. Jesus grew in, I didn't know he had to grow. I mean, like in the mind and stuff, I didn't know that. Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and men. There are 4 areas of growth that you want for your family. These are the 4 areas you have to focus on. Wisdom, which is intellectual growth. Stature, which is the physical growth and health. In favor with God, spiritual growth. And in favor with men, social growth. And Mary and Joseph provided this for Jesus. Now I know that Jesus was 100% God, 100% man. Sometimes I think that we forget that Jesus was a man, a human being. And that Mary and Joseph provided an atmosphere for Jesus to grow in these areas. And I guess he lived at home until he was 30. I don't read of him getting in any kind of an apartment at Nazareth. He lived at home until he was 30. And the reason I'm saying this is that there was a human side to Jesus. A lot of people think that Jesus sat up in the manger 5 minutes after he was born and said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they who mourn, for they shall be comforted." Well, he was just a kid. I know he was smart and that he had a sense of purpose at the age of 12, but we've had children come through here at the age of 12 that will blow you away for what they know. I mean, it's incredible the knowledge that they have. And so some children were asked what they learned in their families. And this is what they said. "They helped me to learn Spanish." It'd be good to know. "Taught me not to get mad at my brother or sister. To be kind. To love God." Now this is where I begin to think that these kids had a religious background. "Don't copy the behavior of the world. Listen and learn. Don't give up on God in hard times." This next one impressed me. "Find value in delayed gratification." I didn't even know that was possible. Isn't that why we have credit cards, so we can get it right now? And then this fella said that when his parents told him, find a better band to play in. I guess they felt like the band he was in wasn't headed anywhere. So what do we learn from our families that we may not learn properly anywhere else? Sometimes adults don't do things very well because they were never taught as children. And we can't assume just because a person is an adult and mature that they are good in all of these relationship areas. That's not necessarily true, because people can grow up chronologically in terms of age but still be very immature. So number one, here's what we're going to learn at home. How to handle my feelings and emotions. In a good family, you learn to identify your feelings and express them and don't suppress them. 2 is how to handle conflict. If that is not learned as a child, they're going to struggle in relationships. Some people, when they don't get their way, become a skunk and stink up the place. And when a skunk is upset, they want everyone to know. And then some people are like the opposite of skunks. They're like turtles. It's like they just kind of go away and they kind of hide. And what is really interesting is that a lot of times skunks marry turtles. Well, there's a lot of interesting combinations in marriage, that's for sure. And then 3 is how to handle disappointment. No one wins all the time, and experiences don't always live up to expectations in relationships, in business, at school. You don't always get the teacher you want. In Proverbs 24:16 it says, "Even though a righteous person falls 7 times, he rises again." Probably 7 is probably a round figure, just a statement that they fall a lot and get up a lot. The principle that I get out of this is what psychologists call resilience. Resilience is one of the most important characteristics a child can learn. They fall off their bike, but they get up with the straight knee and keep going. Resilience, very important. Everyone faces challenges throughout life and experiences a series of wins and losses. And the ability to get up and keep going is not only the key to spiritual success, but is often the key to financial success too. You just can't give up, you keep going. And then number 4, what we learn from our families are what core values matter most. culture is not going to teach your children core biblical values. They're going to have to get those from you. 1 John 2, verses 15 through 17, in this famous text, says, beware of the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, the boastful pride of life. In other words, he's saying, beware of the downside of sex, the downside of money, and the downside of power. And we have to teach our children to recognize false values. Not every value, not every belief is valid from a biblical perspective. There are people who believe the wrong things. I'm talking biblically. Even religious people can believe the wrong things and say the wrong things and do the wrong things. So we have to teach them core biblical values. I'm just talking about the core values. The finer points we can pick up as we experience life. And then number 5 are good habits. And this is important because habits determine behavior. Your behavior is really a combination of your habits. Bring your habits together, and that's your behavior. So how do parents encourage lifelong learning? Number 1 is by example. Be an example. This is John 13, verse 14. And since I, the Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you ought to wash each other's feet. I have given you an example to follow. Do as I have done to you. So Jesus says, since I have given you an example of humble service, I want you to go out and do the same. So by example. And then a second way that we can encourage lifelong learning is by conversations. Many parents' conversations with their children can be summed up in the following phrases. Time to get up, time to eat, we're late, hurry up. The end. So I came across this study, and you'll have to tell me if you have children, grandchildren, you have to tell me if you think this study is correct. Now, I want you to think about it for a while before you make a judgment on it. And this is supposed to have been a legitimate study. It said that the average father spends in direct communication with his children every day. How much time? 37 seconds. 37 seconds a day in direct communication between a father and his children. And I could hardly believe it, so I had to keep studying. I found another study that they got it up to 3 minutes. So I don't know. Think about it. I'm talking about beyond time to get up, time to eat, we're late, and hurry up. That doesn't mean that we're not including that in 37 seconds, right? This is Deuteronomy 6, verse 7. You must teach these commandments to your children and talk about them when you are at home or out for a walk, at bedtime, and the first thing in the morning. So 4 places. At home, out for a walk, at bedtime, first thing in the morning. In other words, Moses is saying, look for teachable moments, and I'm here to tell you, you can't always plan teachable moments. All right, everybody at 2:30 this afternoon in the living room, we're having a teachable moment. Yeah, maybe sometimes that works. A lot of times it just happens, and you have to be ready for it. You can be taking your children to school, and just out of nowhere, all of a sudden you're in this conversation that you weren't expecting. So this will help to make your family God-centered. Be aware of a couple of things. Number 1 is limit negative criticism. We're all aware that there has to be negative things said, but don't make that the totality of your relationship with your children. Don't spend all of your time focusing on what you don't want. And by the way, this is good advice for preaching, and I have tried to follow this advice. The reason I don't get up here every Sunday and metaphorically beat you over the head about your sins is, number one, there's too many of them, and number two, it would take too long. So in Ephesians 6, verse 4, and I chose the Living Bible paraphrase because I was after the last two phrases. And now a word to your parents. Like that. Don't keep on scolding and nagging your children, making them angry and resentful. Rather, bring them up with the loving discipline the Lord Himself approves. Now watch this, with suggestions and godly advice. I like that. With suggestions and godly advice. The second thing is limit comparisons. I get comparisons. Sometimes it has to be a comparison. But you want to limit statements like, why can't you be more like the neighbor's kids? Because, it looks like the neighbor's kids are doing really well. In Galatians 6:4, it says each person should judge his own actions and not compare himself with others. Then he can be proud for what he himself has done. So you want to encourage your children and your spouse to do the best they can with what they have. I understand everybody has different talents, different gifts, and different abilities, and we want to emphasize those. Okay, number 3. Is families offer each other emotional support. And everybody in your family is going through some kind of a storm, if they're at any age. Emotional, financial, moral, physical, relational. Everybody goes through storms. And you're familiar with Ecclesiastes 4. It talks about the principle of two, the power of two. It says 2 are better off than 1. And this is not a discussion about marriage. 2 are better off than 1 because together they can work more effectively. If one of them falls down, the other can help them up. But if someone is alone and falls, it's just too bad because there is no one to help. And there are at least 3 storms that families face where encouragement is really uplifting and needed and good. And number 1 is change. Change is not only difficult for adults, but can be difficult for children. Change is kind of like you're going down the road in your car and you hit a big pothole and kaboom! The wheels kind of come up and they get turned and your car starts going in a slightly different direction and you have to grab the steering wheel and realign the wheels to get going in the direction that you want to go. Sometimes that happens in families. That we hit potholes and next thing you know we're kind of going in a direction we don't want to go. And you have to realign and get back into the right direction. Sometimes people, sometimes families need professional counseling. I'm talking about Christian families. And this is something that I have discussed more than a dozen times, probably several dozen times, with June Chambliss. June, who spent her entire career in social work and counseling. And the beautiful thing about June is that she approached it all from a Christian worldview. And we have talked about Christians and their need for help sometimes. And we're well aware of the Bible. And the Bible gives us principles, but sometimes we need help in the application of those principles. Someone says, well, if you're a Christian, the Bible should be able to do everything. Well, not always. Let me ask you this question. Why do many professional singers have voice coaches? Doesn't make any sense to me. If you're a professional singer, can't you just depend on your talent and your ability? Why would a professional singer pay for a voice coach? Because, as great as the singer may be, sometimes someone assisting you can help you and make you even better. As great as sports people there are, they still train, right? Why even show up on Monday morning for training if you're already the best in swimming or soccer or basketball or football? Because you can be better. So change can be difficult. Second thing, another storm that families face are harmful ideas. Not everything children see on TV or the internet is moral and godly. And a lot of times I think parents, they adequately provide for their children physically, but maybe not morally. Maybe could do a little better morally. Now, I'm not living in a bubble. I am well aware that any 15-year-old can outsmart any 40-year-old. And if they want to do some things or see some things, whatever it is, they're going to do it. You're not going to be able to stop them. They are smarter than you. And when I was 15, and my mom's here, I outsmarted my parents. And it wasn't that tough. So what you do is you lay the best foundation that you can. And then you pray like mad. Sometimes it works out. Sometimes it doesn't work out. Usually it's a combination of the two. And then 3 is rejection. Sometimes you can't alter rejection. Rejection happens. It's out there. You can't stop it. It happens. But you can be caring. Not going to solve a lot of situations, but you can have a caring, compassionate attitude. I love the prophet Ezekiel and the 48 chapters of his book. Interesting book. Ezekiel could not stop God's people from going into foreign captivity. They were in captivity, and oh, everything's so bad in captivity, and they were complaining, and Ezekiel said, well, God warned us. But I love Ezekiel 3:15. It says, I sat where they sat. In other words, he was a compassionate, caring prophet. I kind of felt sorry for the guy. I was sorry for the guy. The Lord comes to him and he says, I want you to announce to the nation of Israel that they are going into captivity for 70 years. And Ezekiel says, well, is there some kind of a sign that I can give them so that they will know that I represent you? Yes, there is. And the sign is this. You go out and tell them tonight that tomorrow your wife is going to die. That's going to be my sign. I'm going to kill your wife. And after she dies, you're not going to be in sorrow, and you're not going to be in pain, and you're not going to cry. And it says in the morning, my wife died. And I did not cry. I did not sorrow. But I went out and I spoke to the people. Woo! Man, that's some tough stuff, isn't it? This is Psalm 71:9. And now, in my old age, passages like this a few years ago meant nothing to me. Now they're taped on the screen of my computer. And now, in my old age, don't set me aside. Don't forsake me now when my strength is failing. People can feel rejection at every stage of life. And when your parents are old, don't reject them. Maybe they weren't everything that they were supposed to be, but we're all flawed human beings. Do you remember when Abraham and Sarah kicked Hagar and Ishmael out of the camp? Get out of here. Well, Abraham, who lived 175, when he died, it says in the book of Genesis, guess who was at the funeral? Ishmael. Ishmael came to honor his father at the funeral. Number 4, God's original design is families serve God and others. Serve God and others. This is Acts 10, verse 2. Cornelius and all of his family were devout and God-fearing. He gave generously to those in need and prayed to God regularly. I want that to be said about your family. Continue to be said about your family. This is Hebrews 10:24. Let us think about each other and help each other to show love and do good deeds. Good deeds are what we call ministry or Christian service. And so is your family modeling godly devotion, generosity, and good deeds. And there are a lot of opportunities throughout the years to do services of various kinds at Port City. We have a few people, we have like the blessing bags and the angel program. We have a few people here who have the special gift of organizing those kind of projects. And let me tell you, it takes gifted people to do it. And they are so good at it. And it gives the opportunity for the rest of the congregation to be involved. So we have a lot of things. Where are they? In the bulletin. I didn't bring my bulletin up here. It's a beautiful bulletin. You see all those beautiful pictures in there, Dorothy? It's always just so nice. What an outstanding bulletin. Isn't that beautiful? Oh, yeah. Okay. There we go. Aren't these beautiful? You look through it every week, right? You get it online. It's beautiful. It's very, very beautiful. Look at 1 Corinthians 16:15. This is the closing of 1 Corinthians, the section where Paul usually greets people. Do you remember Stephanus and his family? Do y'all remember the Stephanus family? They visited with us about 2,000 years ago. Just a regular family. Isn't it kind of neat? Whoever thought that their family would be mentioned and people would be reading about them all the way throughout time? Isn't that interesting? Do you remember Stephanus and his family? They were the first to become Christians in Greece, and they are spending their lives helping and serving Christians everywhere. 2,000 years later, we're still reading about this family's legacy. Your family isn't going to be godly by chance, only by choice, by commitment, sacrifices, and generosity. Now, none of that is a guarantee that everything's going to turn out the way that you want it to. But godly families do not accidentally happen. It's the result of choices being made. It's just like democracy. This beautiful democracy we have and called America, democracies don't happen accidentally. They're the result of commitment and sacrifices and generosity. When people are just left on their own, you end up with a dictatorship. That's why they cried out to Moses, give us a dictator. We want a king. We love kings and dictators. And then they get all beat up by him and they, oh, we can't stand it, give us another king. So start celebrating your family today. Start a legacy, leave a legacy. This is Joshua 24:15. This is what is called Joshua's farewell speech. He said, I'm leaving you all. I'm going the way of all the earth. Of course, he doesn't know it. He's going to live for about 20 more years. Sometimes they gave farewell speeches in the Bible. They didn't know they were going to live really long. So they're all up there, I'm sorry, I'm going away. And they're like, 15 years later, they're still there. He doesn't die until you get into the book of Judges. So he just thinks, he's like a lot of us, just thinks he's dying. Choose today whom you will serve. As for me and my family, yeah, it's a famous passage. We will serve the Lord. Doesn't matter what other families are doing. Your family can serve the Lord. And we are grateful for all of you, for your families, for your children. And hey, we are well aware of the fact that things don't always turn out exactly the way that we want them to. But we appreciate your Christianity. We appreciate your core moral values. We appreciate the effort that you are making your family to be godly. And when things don't turn out the way that we want, we still love each other, right? We're still going to hug each other. And we're still going to hold on to our faith. Did I put a name of a book at the end of your outline? I had a book I was going to recommend. How We Love Our Kids by Kay Yerkovich. I'd have to spell her last name for you if you want to write it down. Yerkovich. How We Love Our Kids by Kay Yerkovich. Good little book, easy to read. And if you see some points in her book similar to on the outline, then you'll know that she got a hold of my outliner. Would you bow with me? Our Father in heaven, we come before you. We thank you so very much that we have families to love, families to be with. And we pray that we will give them godly advice and godly experiences, and that we will enjoy our families to whatever degree we are able. Help us to look at our family as a gift, as something you have given for us. We love you, we appreciate you. In Jesus' name, amen. We're going to sing an invitation hymn, and if you have a particular need, please let us know what it is while we stand and sing. Pray.